I'm using the pocket hole screws for the bottom shelf, the same as I did for all the 2x4 parts. They're very secure, so I'm very happy with the way they hold. So I'm screwing these all in, and this is what it looks like when it's done. This is the underside. You'll never see it. So they're very discreet, and this is the inside bottom of the cabinet. I was looking for 3-inch high casters which spin around, also lock, and I thought these blue ones were cool. They turned out to be 3.5 inches, so my measurements are off by ½ an inch. The countertop will be 36.5 inches high, but I can live with that. In order to secure these rolling wheels, I attached some I think they're about 3 inches, maybe 4 inches square. I attached those with on the underside with again pocket hole screws, and I really needed to make it secure so it wasn't going anywhere. I'm sure this table will be heavy, so the casters are strong. It's just really dependent on the attachment to the bottom of the cabinet. You can see I'm using pocket hole screws for that also. So there she sits, and this is everything in place. A 1/4 inch plywood to close off the cabinet, and you see I got some nails there. I pulled those out and cleaned that up, but I did a molding around the outer edge just to secure it, keep it nice and firm and sturdy. And looking at it after it's all finished, I think it really cleaned it up and made it look like a finished piece of furniture. And I know I talked about this special glue that I use. It's a hot glue for making and gluing together boats. So it's wicked strong, but that's what I used to secure these pieces. There was no way I was going to get any kind of nail in there, and wood glue, that would have taken a long time to hold and to secure up there, so I didn't use that. Hot glue is instant. And I was just about out of this early American stain, which is what I did the whole legs in, but I wanted to try and get as much as I could, so I mixed it, thinned it actually a little bit with some naphtha, which did the trick, and I was able to at least finish the outside parts. The inside part, I haven't done that. I'll have to do that at a later date when I have more of this early American stain on hand. Now that the main part of the cabinet is done, I'm about to build the drawer that will go in that top slot. My first idea for this drawer was to build a frame or a platform inside the cabinet for the drawer to slide on. But then I decided, because the drawer was so heavy, it's 3/4 inch MDF all the way around, with a 1/4 inch base for the flooring that I've notched in. You'll see that. But it's just too heavy, so I decided I needed some metal sliders on the side. So I really had to change everything, had to resize this drawer and do a lot of extra things just to make this thing fit well and be secure. Now I'm cutting, I guess you'd say, a dado, although it's not a dado knife. I've actually took 3 passes moving the fence over enough to get that board in there, which is 1/4 inch. So I decided, as I said earlier, to use these metal sliders that are good for 100 pounds each. So they should cover me for this drawer that's probably, I don't know, 20 pounds, maybe 30 pounds. These sliders are 3/8 inch wide, so I have to add that to my interior width, which means I have to resize the drawer. So this is the finished cabinet minus the drawer front and the cabinet fronts. That I'll do at a later date. I want to use reclaimed, rustic looking cedar. And now on to the resin top and the process in making it. So when I do this two-part resin, you can see A and B in the background there. I mix a base of black into the thinner one, which is B. A is thick, so I wait to do that. After I got all the paint mixed into part B, I added that black luster. It's a metallic, kind of a shiny look. All of these that I'm showing you now are on the shiny side. That is a bronze paint, and I wanted to have the secondary color, that bronze color. The accent color is going to be copper. Here is the setup. I have got this top flipped over. This is going to be the top, but the Bondo, you can tell that's all irregular shaped. Plastic down. This is to prevent everything from dripping off of this. It is a little runny, but the whole thing is surrounded in this, and it's a table that I can move around so I can get to the other sides, and because it's going to be something I do with my hands. Now I'm making 3 mixtures. One is going to be the black, that'll be the base, the other will be bronze, and the third will be the accent color of copper. Each one of those has some metallic dust in it and also isopropyl alcohol, which makes cells, which you'll see. They're like bursts of circles. You'll see those in the final. There are so many different ways to pour resin, mix resin. I mean, it's endless. And this is the pattern that I've come up with, and it works well for me. So if you have any questions and I haven't been detailed enough, please put them in the comments. I'll be more than happy to maybe do a new video with details or just try to answer your question straight up. Depending on the quantity of resin that I'm mixing, most of the time do it by hand because I don't really have volume like this. But this is 16 ounces total with A and B together, so I use this drill with a paddle and it makes life a little bit simpler. I do it for about 4 minutes with this much resin. Black is my first pour, then I go on top of that with the bronze and I smear it all in, making sure that resin is on the entire surface as well as the edges where all the Bondo was and all those little nooks and crannies are. So after the top and the sides are fully covered, if I have any leftover paint, I'll go back and add whatever's left over. And I start to dab it because I don't necessarily like the smeared look, but I wanted to have this sort of ethereal look. So I put my hand down and pull up and dab the surface to get unusual mixtures. After about a half an hour of working with the resin, I use this torch to remove air bubbles. The heat activates the resin in a way that draws those air bubbles to the top. After I was done with the first torching or air bubble removal process, the heat does that. It just pulls up the air bubbles. They come up naturally, but the heat really encourages them to come up. After that, I sprinkled some of that black luster metallic powder on and then smeared it in. And you can see it looks smeared, which I don't like, so I go back and dab that. This process of smearing, adding more colored resin, dabbing, getting all the edges, trying to get rid of some dimples and bubbles goes on for about, I'd say about an hour, maybe an hour and a half, until I'm finally relatively happy. I use the torch again, do a number of things to make this thing final. Yes, it will move. You can see I'm pulling away some resin to the edges to make sure that it's fully covered. But I don't like that look, so I'll go back and dab that some more. Now I'm adding a little bit more of the bronze to fill in where that gray is. I didn't really like that solid color. I love the way they mix together. And finally I'm adding that last accent, the copper, and I integrate that into the same fluid surface the same way I've done the other resins. Knowing when to stop manipulating your surface is half the battle. It's always the question with an artist, whether it's a painting or drawing. You always have to say, is this enough? Do I need to go a little further? For me, it's kind of an intuitive thing. I get to a certain point where I'm thinking, this is good, stop now. It's those air bubbles that I need to get out. So I have to babysit this for about an hour to get rid of those air bubbles. And I use the torch like you saw me using earlier to get those out. So I pulled the tape off from around the edge, and you can see that I got into all those little nooks and crannies where the Bondo is really nicely. So I'm very happy with the way this looks. There are some drips. I'll have to sand those off later and maybe retouch with paint or something black, but we'll see when I get to that point. It's extremely glossy at this point. What I'll do is sand it again and put a top coat on it. Now the top coat is a bit flat, but I'll be okay with that. It's going to be a highly used surface, so as long as it's got a sealant on it with this top coat, I'll be happy. The cabinet door faces and the drawer face were made of reclaimed cedar, and the same as the doors on the cabinet on the to the left there. And I put wormy chestnut handles on this face. I chose not to use antler on the kitchen island because they would stick out too far and I didn't want to run into those with my knees. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe. Thanks.